I'd like to first call upon stage our first panelist, Professor Arindrajit Chowdhury, CEO of Inspacity, and our second panelist, Suyash Singh, CEO of GalaxEye Space. Prof. You would see Srinath also on as one of the panelists, but there's an urgent meeting with the chairman of InSpace, and hence, and Srinath is about 2 kilometers away and is trying to rush back for this panel. If he joins in, we will get to hear from him as well. But very quickly, to get into the groove, we decided to theme this a little bit, right? And with Srinath also, and you would understand why we went with this theme. In fact, Suyash actually suggested the theme. We wanted to, Suyash is working with GalaxEye. GalaxEye puts things into space, is building satellites. Agnikul will take these satellites into space, and Professor Arin is working with building Inspacity, which will, sustain things in space. So why go to space? How do you go to space? And why and how to sustain in space, right? That's a theme that we are looking for. And let me try to cover 2 of those themes at this point of time. So Suyash, let's step back a little. I know you talked about a little bit in about an hour and a half ago, but why do we even have to go to space? What is it that we are not able to do while being on the ground, right? And why has this been so important over the past 50, 60 years across the world? And what is it that you are doing with GalaxEye?
Yeah, I think I'll cover it super quick, right? In the session that I did before, I mentioned it at a very brief level. So, just to brush off again, there are many applications like, Lux was presenting earlier, Uber, DoorDash, and whatnot. All of these applications are actually powered by navigation satellites or GPS satellites. So, the scale at which these apps operate is possible just because we have a navigation satellite in space, right? We are communicating faster. Internet is much more, seamless than ever, and it'll become even more streamlined as you go along with Starlink and OneWeb and whatnot that's happening. This is the communication space, right? So at the scale and the performance that we talk about, or where we want to be as humanities, space is the frontier. Like I won't even say frontier, right? Space is the requirement. That's where we have to be. So I think one key element to just point out would be scale. And so if you want to operate through drones to do some level of imaging, you can do it for some kilometers, some square kilometers, like let's say 100 square kilometers, 200 square kilometers. But if you have to map something on a regular cadence on a daily basis, or let's say on a 3-hourly basis, you need something to be, in the orbit, so that you can do it regularly again and again and get the right data. So in a nutshell, right, there are many applications. Why space, or why go to space? I think there are many more that I can talk about, like mining in space, manufacturing in space, and whatnot. But 3 of the core applications are communication, navigation, and imaging. That's why we need it. And at GalaxEye, just to reiterate, the image pipeline to monitor things on Earth is pretty broken, and we're fixing it. That's where we come in.
Wonderful. Professor Arin, once you go up in space, and we know that there are thousands of satellites in space right now, right? What is happening once all these things go up in space? What is the problem statement that is plaguing the in-space economy at this point of time, and how are you trying to address those problems?
So, good evening. Right, so yes, there are a lot of really large plans. Like Suyash, there are like a lot of startups. Let's say in Earth observation alone, there are 7,000 satellites that have been booked right now in over, I would imagine, around 70 to 80 companies, right, who would want to go up in that many sorties, right? But a lot of them will die out, right? That's a fact, because things will not go as planned. You will put up, assuming a particular unit economics, satellites in space, you'll start generating data, but then things go wrong, and the design is not as good as you thought. You have done the best that you could, but these are also electromechanical systems. Anything that we have electromechanical is prone to failure, right? It is going to fail. Some small thing is going to fail, and that is going to lead to a chain reaction, not a chain reaction making everything else fail, but because all subsystems are very critically dependent upon all of the others. If one of them fail, the satellite goes bust. And yes, the lifetimes predicted are of the order of, let's say, 4 years, right? They should work. But things happen and things don't work out. Solar activity is there, or some other systemic error is there in your design. Something leads to something else, okay? And this is consistently proven across the board. So that is what is now holding humanity back as a whole. This kind of a failure rate that is there. So in all other startups that you have, people can make mistakes and get away with it. Right? If you talk to any of the other founders, they're at peace because they will make something, it'll break, they will fix it, and they will move on to the next version. But when Suyash asks for money, right, and if it breaks, everybody is super nervous. It's like giving a kid to play with that, family heirloom that you keep in your cupboard, and you give it. Say, yeah, beta, play, no problem. It might break, no. So you have taken precautions. You have put a foam, surface. And everything is cool. There is a babysitter who is looking very aptly, but things happen. Right. That is what where we want to come in and fix that, other than building the city part. Yes.
And how do you go about doing that? What do you do to solve those problems?
Correct. So to solve the problem, we have looked that we are taking a kind of inspiration from technology that has been thought of. In space, you will find a lot of the stuff has been kind of directly taken from sci-fi and then brought to life, like our cell phones or a lot of technology that we see today, right? So when you are launching a rocket, when you're launching a satellite, these are all thought of in some way. The way to repair them is also thought of. You attach a smaller unit at the back of your existing ailing satellite, and you extend the lifetime of that satellite. It is as simple as that. It has been proven in geostationary satellite by DARPA out of US, and Northrop Grumman, the defense giant, has kind of taken that technology and shown that in 2020 that it can be done. So same thing is now proliferating across the board. Correct.
Wonderful. Suyash, to understand, you're speaking with a lot of customers outside of India as well. I know you've been spending some time in Indonesia, speaking to companies working in the aquaculture space, also in defense, also in insurance. What is it about the product that you are offering, the product offering that you're giving, that's making this a globally competitive product? Why are people from Indonesia seeking solutions from GalaxEye?
Yeah, I think being in space, naturally you're serving the global market, right? Not just the local market. And largely, our skill, or I would say our USP, is to fight with clouds. And the regions where clouds are predominantly there, you'll find Southeast Asia, South American markets. These are very cloud prominent markets, right? So, and the food economy at large is unserved in those markets. Like, they want to monitor it, they want to track it, they want to give credit to the stakeholders in the ecosystem and whatnot, right? So the idea is to, bring the most consistent data set by using multi-sensor imaging system and convert that data into insights and finally offer so that that ecosystem can run more smoothly. Right? So that is why we were able to attract a bunch of global customers who are sitting in the Southeast Asia and the US market as well. So that was one thing, because of the core differentiation that we bring on the table. We definitely compete with the global guys. It's not just the local guys, right? So it's not like building in India and then expanding it somewhere else. It's actually building for the globe from day one. So that's pretty much how we're tackling that.
Professor, would you also say that working on in-space technologies, you are accessing a global market from day one? Is there a strong market that comes in right now, right today, and is this not something that's right there in the future? Is it a need for today, or is this something that's going out for the future?
Yeah, so the global part is very well understood. Space is something that breaks all barriers of land or man-made barriers. So definitely any technology that you develop is definitely global, right, for space. The other aspect is very good for us. Any customer I talk to does not believe that this can be done, because they have talked to companies out of US and Europe, and they have understood that the cost of servicing one satellite that is ailing might be more at a custom launch and the vehicle that will do the servicing and the small unit that we want to attach at the back. So they're very clear that this cannot be done, which is very good for us. Because we know exactly how to do it, and we know we can do it. Because our unit economics works out beautifully in this scenario. Right.
Wonderful.
So they start off by saying that, please, don't even talk about this. At the end, they take the card, they take all the contact information, and the technical team start talking. Very good for us. Yeah.
And is that a tough job as a CEO to sell something that people don't believe in, or do you enjoy that process?
Come on, I mean, this entire process is a challenge, right? Of running a startup and selling stuff. Yeah, it's far tougher than a professor's job. Even though teaching IIT, let's say Bombay first-year students who are extremely excited and want to question everything you say, but even then.
Prof, that was actually my third question that I wanted to ask, and I'll ask you that and then come to Suyash. You've been in academia for at least a decade now as a professor. I would imagine that's a rosy life in that sense.
It's an understatement.
Yeah,
yes.
Sure. So to move away from that into entrepreneurship at this point of time in your life, what is propelling you to do something like this? This is hard, right? And I'm pretty sure the past year and a half would have taught you that. So this is a hard problem that you're solving for. It is a hard ecosystem. What is propelling you to do this? Is this a personal mission that comes for you? Is this also that that India is at that point of time where it is at the right time, right place to do something like this? Is there a macro that's also pushing you along with a person's story?
So I would say that me and Satya have worked for a while together. His area is combustion and specifically propellant combustion, and my area is also exactly the same. So we have created this Center of Propulsion Technology together around 2017 or so, after years of work behind it. So I have been watching from the sidelines, and I never imagined that I would become an entrepreneur because it seemed like a lot of hard work. Agreed, right? But then, I have been doing research all my life along with Satya outside, and we have built a lot of stuff across the years. But nothing has really, brought to fruition in some way. So the pandemic was a really good time to sit down and think. I had achieved whatever I wanted to achieve in the academic area. I could keep on writing more academic research papers and increase the number of publications in that way. Or I could step back and look at, what can I do for humanity as a whole. I was brought up in a Ramakrishna Mission school, so that was very good. As a spiritual aspect of it, I come from a lower middle class family, so I have seen poverty up close. So I was wondering and of course sci-fi is there in a huge dose from very early age. So all of that kind of came together, and I was trying to understand, how do we reach the next paradigm? Today, every one of us is kind of richer than a king in a way. Compared to old ages, we can use this magic wand and we can talk to people at will. We are cured of all regular illnesses at the drop of a hat. Everything is at our doorstep. But still there is a huge amount of poverty, huge amount of inequality that is there. How do we kind of resolve it? How do we create humanity 2.0? Right? And that is the part where where I came across this ideas by Gerard K. O'Neill, one of the profs out of Princeton. And very nice ideas. I mean, you go to a place where resources are abundant, energy is abundant, and you create a city up there somewhere between Earth and Moon, and set of cities. And for me, the stamp was when Asimov agreed to this. They have an interview like this with a TV presenter, really grilling this guy, Gerard K. O'Neill, and Asimov also grilling parallelly. And he comes back convinced at the end of the day that he had been a planetary chauvinist. He has always placed his sci-fis on planets, not in between planets. So it was a simple choice to drive from there.
Very cool. In fact, I remember when we first met over a year and a half ago, Prof would put in so much of references to pop culture and sci-fi. The Star Wars and the Star Trek references I never got because I haven't watched either of those, but he gave references with Big Bang Theory and The Friends, which is what my generation at least has watched. So it was some great storytelling that we heard from Prof when we first met. I know we are running short of time for the next session. Suyash, just one last question. You've done two projects that are deep tech, right? They're tough technologies that you worked on. The first was in 2017, where you worked on the Hyperloop project at IIT Madras. You founded the Hyperloop project. And 4 years later, you started working on satellite imaging with GalaxEye. What is it that pushes you to kind of work on these tough technologies? Is that a choice that you take, voluntarily every single time and every single day to face these challenges?
No, I think not certainly. I think my career or my journey so far, building things have been very, one step at a time. So long story short, I would say, just to answer your question, there are many things that gets us going, but one of the key things is the support system, right? And I'll cite 2 stories on that. First one is from my Hyperloop days, when we basically crossed the second level of competition, and we were sure that we were going to SpaceX, and we were 4 months away from the competition, and we had to get sponsorships and whatnot worth ₹1 crore which was unheard for any student team, be it an IIT team or whatnot. And I remember writing to Mr. M.M. Murugappan sir, and he immediately replied to that email, and he called me for coffee next day. And next day he was limping, but he still came to that meeting, just to have coffee with us. I started opening my presentation to show him, and he said, no, shut it down. Just talk to me what you're doing. And he remembered one video getting played in one of his flights, where there was another Hyperloop team which went to SpaceX, and they were doing something. And he just asked me vividly, is this the same thing that you guys are doing? I said, yes, sir. And we are the only Indian team and Asian team to do so. And the next statement was, okay, you know what? Just because of money, an Indian team should not fail in the global context. And he gave us 25%. Sorry. So he gave us 25% of the entire sponsorship amount. That, without doubt. Right. So I think, that early level of support is massive in a lot of contexts. Second story. 14th of April 2021, we received the term sheet from Special. We never incorporated the company as well, till that time. We incorporated the company 1 month later. That belief. And an attachment to that story, I met my wife on 14th April 2021. And the first thing I told her is I'm leaving my job and starting my company. She still came along. So, I think the support gets us going.
Wonderful. Professor Aran, what's next for Inspacity? What are the exciting things that you're doing? What do you want to look forward to over the next couple of years?
So if everything goes well, by the end of this year, we should be able to fly a prototype propulsion system, if everything goes well, right. Then beyond that, we have a set of 4 satellites planned, one after the other. The first one is free, and the next ones have to be paid for, right? To prove the technology that I talked about, that we can rescue satellites. The names are planned accordingly. They are all named upon Vedic mythological characters, Rama, Sita, so on and so forth. So I will divulge later. Yes, yes.
Wonderful. Suyash, what's next for you guys? What's coming up for GalaxEye?
Oh, I think at least a couple of years we want to be in space. First satellite has to go up, and then we want to be more verticalized in terms of going to the market, right? So it is not just putting satellite in the orbit. The data has to make some sense. So we're working hard to to take payloads to the insights level, pixels to insights. That's what it is.
Awesome. We got to wrap this up, but it was great speaking to both of you. Thank you so much for taking the time. Prof, thank you so much for making the trip all the way from Mumbai. Suyash, for coming down from Bangalore. Thank you everyone for listening. I hope you had a great time as well. Suyash and Prof are available over the evening as well, and please feel free to catch up with them as you wish. Thank you so much.